the gang of grasshoppers, and of course the one thing that terrifies the grasshopper is the bird. Of course, you look at this, from our perspective, it's like this cute little robin, right? It's like, oh, you're little sparrow, whatever. And then from his perspective, it's like this terrifying thing.
Dude, they are horrifying. If you go out to Elkhorn Slough, there's a visitor center there, and they have this scale mock-up of what are those things? The herons, the birds that
the storks, or
the ones with the big long beaks that just spear everything.
Okay, yep, okay.
Holy cow! And they have a crane. I don't know what it is, but they have a setup there, a scale setup. And it's as if though you're a clam or something. You see just this big foot coming down. And it's like, holy cow, that is scary. Boy.
Like Bambi versus Godzilla, right?
Something like that. Like Bambi versus Godzilla.
Or the sequel, which is Bambi versus Godzilla. The sequel just shows Godzilla, just in the opening credits, just like, breathing fire on Tokyo or whatever. And this big deer thing squashes him. That's the sequel.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never seen. I saw, Bambi versus Godzilla, the first one where he smashes.
Where Bambi just shows Bambi. There's a big Godzilla who just steps on.
Wonderful thing about comics. I mean, would that qualify as a comic?
I don't know. I think that was that was an animated short.
It was an animated short, yeah. Well, if you haven't checked it out, Jim, too, I would recommend that you check out those 2-minute shorts. And there are 2 minutes. I mean, it's a 2-minute story, comic book heroes. It's really fun, and you could just watch through them real fast.
There you go.
Fun stuff.
Well, hey, Dave, thanks. I'm sorry we didn't get all that many callers today.
Oh, it's okay, Jim. We had fun.
We had snacks.
479-1080 is the phone number. Yes, we did have snacks. So coming up next is the elephant in the room.
That's
Keep it tuned in. Chris and Kristen will be taken to the airwaves in just a few minutes here. Don't go anywhere. Don't touch nothing. Don't touch that dial, because you never know where that thing's been, right, Jim?
Well, I don't know where mine's been, but I still don't want to touch it.
Don't touch it. Could be. This is KSEO Santa Cruz. Headlines are up next.
So I can phone my mother and catch a cab to his high-rise apartment. At last he can tell her exactly what his heart meant. You want my body and you think I'm sexy. Come on, honey, tell me so. If you really need me, just reach out and touch me. Come on, sugar, let
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Jason Walker. Manhunt underway in Los Angeles for a suspect accused of stabbing to death a 24-year-old employee at a furniture store. Brianna Kupfer, a graduate student at UCLA, was alone on a shift at the store when a masked man walked in and attacked her. Los Angeles Councilman Paul Koretz announcing a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of the suspect.
We must never allow this type of lawlessness to become commonplace. This horrible murder is an attack on our way of life, our civil society, and our neighborhood.
High-profile killing at a New York subway station, rattling a lot of nerves and injecting fear into the perception of whether the lifeblood of the nation's largest city is safe. Also at townhall.com, 3 people have died in a fire at a senior apartment building in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Police officers had evacuated several residents before firefighters arrived. Kenosha Fire Department Inspector Keith Alds.
One of the most important things that people can do is, if they are unable to exit the building, is to keep their front door closed. It will keep the fire at bay as best, for a longer length of time.
Several people have been critically injured in that place. The Biden administration has very quietly today launched its website for Americans to request free at-home COVID-19 test. They did this one day before the site was scheduled to officially launch. The website is covidtest.gov. It includes a link for Americans to order 4 tests per address to be delivered by the Postal Service. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hello, friends. This is Dave Michaels here to let you know that all products down at the Dave Cave are on sale this week, Monday through Friday from 12 till 7 p.m. Buy 3 of the same product at regular price and get a 4th one free. This includes Tangy Tangerine, available in original, 2.0, 2.5, tablets, and stick packs. We've also got the Ultimate Daily Classic for better circulation, Sweeties to help control blood sugar levels, Enzymes and Flora FX for better digestion, Vision FX and Occutive for your eyes, MSM and Glucogel for bone and joint support, healthy chocolates, keto-friendly meal replacement bars, Arthrodex for your four-legged friends, Colon FX, Prost FX, and more. Tell your friends, tell your family, and tell your pets. The Dave Cave is having another sale this week, Monday through Friday from 12 till 7 p.m. We're at 2300 Portola Drive in Santa Cruz. Cash and checks are gladly accepted, but unfortunately, we cannot take credit cards at this time. Buy 3, get 1 free, Monday through Friday, 12 till 7 p.m.
Heavy ash residue on a runway hampering relief efforts to Tonga as the scale of the damage from a volcanic eruption and tsunami becomes clear.
So far, only 2 people have been confirmed dead, but pictures taken by the New Zealand Air Force show one village completely destroyed. It's thought some areas were hit by a wave between 5 and 10 metres high, which could have gone right across some low-lying islands. Elsewhere, about 200 volunteers were sweeping away ash from Tonga's main airport runway so aid flights can land. New Zealand is also sending help by ship, including fresh water. Residents have been told to wear masks outdoors because of poor air quality caused by the volcanic eruption.
Hong Kong authorities say they will kill 2,000 small animals after several tested positive for the virus at a pet store where an employee was also infected. Breaking news and analysis at townhall.com. As President Biden's popularity continues to plummet, American University poli-sci professor David Barker says Biden's first year has simply been dismal.
On the sort of simplest metrics that you use in the moment, namely, right, how successfully he's getting his agenda passed and, his popularity rating, things are going pretty poorly right now.
As Biden put the full weight of his presidency behind voting rights last week, heading to Capitol Hill in an effort to push Democrats to change Senate rules and pass legislation, something, or should we say someone, was missing. Vice President Kamala Harris was nowhere to be seen. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki and Harris aides have given no clear answer where the VP was. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Good evening, Santa Cruz and the Monterey Bay area. It's time for your King of the Hill traffic, weather, and boating. It's 7:05 p.m. We have Elephant in the Room and Wake the Bear coming up here, so stay tuned. Get started with traffic. There were a few traffic collisions earlier that looked like they've cleared. The last one that we have here is 6:49 p.m. Traffic collision. This one's still open. US 101 North and Levisley. Northbound lane, US 101 North and Levisley. It looks like there's one unit assigned to the scene. There's a vehicle pulled over there, and there's some smoke involved. Again, that's at US 101 North and Levisley if you're traveling through that area. Outside of that, I do have a closure on Highway 1 this evening at 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. They're going to be closing one. Looks like the northbound highway, the northbound side is going to be closed. That goes from 10 p.m. until 4 a.m. They are fixing that overpass. Again, one northbound side will be closed between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. For your 7-day forecast, it's currently 50 degrees at the KSCO station. Patchy fog tonight, lows into the 40s. For the next 6 to 7 days, we're looking at sunny skies, mostly sunny skies during the day, mostly clear at night. Highs in the 60s, lows into the 40s. And for you boaters, no major advisory in effect this evening, and nothing for me to issue for tomorrow. Now, with that said, my first show with you guys is Elephant in the Room. Hope you enjoy the show.
Opinions expressed in the following sponsored program are not necessarily those of KSCO Radio, its staff, management, or advertisers. If something is said with which you disagree, please call us during the program in order to help us balance comments.
Good evening. This is Chris, and we want to welcome you to the Elephant in the Room.
Hi, this is Kristen. We are conservatives in Santa Cruz County, and we have found our voice. The elephant is our future, and we should all be paying attention.
We believe in the Constitution, family, business, freedom, liberty, and equality for all. And we want to thank Patty Erickson Real Estate for sponsoring our show. We do need sponsors. Don't be afraid. We'll even take partial sponsors. But we need, because we have to pay for our time. So please contact us at knk@ksco.com.
I know. We like doing this, but we can't do it on our own. We need some help.
We do need some help. How are you?
I'm really good. The bigger question is, how are you?
I'm good. I know I haven't been in the studio in a few weeks, and I haven't seen you in a while either. I'm good. I don't know. Do we want to talk about it right now?
It's all up to you.
Yeah, so I was in Austin for Christmas and came back and tested positive for COVID, which I was like, okay, whatever. I just want to get it over with is basically my feeling. I was really dizzy for a few days, and once we got that figured out, I rode my bike 18 miles. On my fourth day, I felt fine. Everything was good. And then the next week, I got really, 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 really tired every day, sleeping a ton, which it was New Year's, so that was fine. And last Sunday, I got to give a plus to my Apple Watch. If anybody's older that has concerns or might fall down and hit them or their head. I didn't fall down and hit my head, but man, this thing's amazing what it can do. So I was on a Sunday evening sleeping because that's all I did for many days, and my heart rate started racing, and my watch actually woke me up and said, "You're having 130 beats per minute. This is not normal." So I took some baby aspirin, laid back down, and did it again because it alerted me, and I texted my husband and said, "Come upstairs," and I spent 3 days in the hospital with AFib.
That is just amazing. So, do you have your watch set to any setting that tells you?
Well, I don't know. I guess it came with these settings. I mean, so another thing that did save me through all this is I work out at CrossFit Aptos. I got to give them a plug because I finally went back today and it felt great. But with all the working out and the rowing and doing, that cardio stuff, it never has gone off saying, "Hey, you're doing too much for yourself." So this must be some standard setting. I don't know. Apparently 130 beats a minute. No, I didn't. I probably could, but I'm lame.
Well, no, that's helpful because I've been telling your story. I was with some friends the other day, and they actually got watches for Christmas for each other because he's worried about his heart, and the doctor actually told him to do it. And I was telling him about your situation, and she asked me, well, she must have it programmed to go off. And so I said, I doubt she would do that. No,
I don't even know how to do that. So
not that I don't completely trust your technology skills.
No, yeah, they're not so good. So with all of my working out since April, and I'm in my 60s. I am not hardcore doing it, but we did row 5,000 meters last month in under 30 minutes, and it kicked my butt, but I did it. But this thing didn't go off saying, "Hey, dummy, you're doing too much." So obviously it's got some preset that 130 beats per minute is not a good thing.
Right. Or it should change with your age. We had this conversation too. The way I remember it, and maybe it's different, you take 220, subtract your age, and then that's your maximum heart rate that you should get to if you're ever exercising. Yeah.
Well, mine's never said. I mean, sometimes it'll say, "Oh, we see you're rowing, or we see you're riding your bike, or whatever. Do you want us to record it?" And I'll say, "Sure." I mean, I don't do anything with the information, but this watch really alerted me. And I'm also...
You don't feel your rings?
Pardon?
You don't feel your rings?
What do you mean?
There's little rings that.
I don't pay attention to that. I just do what I can do. So yeah, I do know that
I don't
there's
have
rings.
one. I'm not.
So if you fall down and hit your watch or your head or whatever, it'll say, "Are you okay?" And it's funny because Eric has set all my electronic stuff, and for some reason it calls me Pimp Daddy. I think we've talked about this before. So it'll say, "Are you okay, Pimp Daddy?" Which is hilarious because that's hardly a good name for me. If he's listening right now, I hope he's laughing.
Well, I'm really glad that you're okay.
Yeah. So my advice is, I talked to my cousin who's 71 last night, and I said, get an Apple Watch. It's worth the $300 or $400, especially if you live alone, especially if we fall down sometimes. I have fallen down a few times. So it'll alert you and say, "Are you okay?" And if you don't answer, it calls 911, or it'll call your emergency contact saying, "Hey, Pimp Daddy is in the garage on the cement." But anyways, so I did go to the hospital, and the first question, we're driving, and my husband says, my son's girlfriend just commented and said, "Eric's laughing his butt off, Pimp Daddy." I said, "Do I tell him the truth that I haven't been vaccinated?" And he's like, "Well, you might as well not lie about it because they need to know the real information." So when I checked in, and I did tell them I hadn't been vaccinated. They just wrote non.
Because you were worried, right?
Well, what do? You hear about how they treat you, and they put you in some broom closet somewhere and forget about you. So I told them I had not been vaccinated, and I will say Dominican, I've had both my knees replaced there, and they've been great every time. Dominican was awesome. They did not give me a hard time. They did not treat me differently. They did do a COVID test after I already had it for I think this was like day 14 or 13 when I showed up with my heart thing. So they said it was positive, which I don't think so, but whatever. So they did isolate me, but they were great with me. They were really good. I was in a room by midnight that night, and then I stayed. And but the only bummer was my husband and my son or whoever could not come in. So, and I was a little foggy. My mind was
not yourself.
No,
is a fact.
My mind was not there. So then my husband's like, "Well, did the so and so call? Or did they come in? Did they do? What'd they say?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I really don't. You know, when you need that second set of ears, and we couldn't have it." So the funny thing is he's like, "Well, did the cardiologist come in?" I said, "I don't know." And he's like, "What do you mean you don't know?" And I said, "I don't know. I mean, I was again sleeping, and they have you on all these drugs."
Yeah, you were not good.
So I went to a I now have a cardiologist. I went and saw him yesterday, and my husband went with me to the appointment. And he says, "So I've read all your stuff, but it's really nice to finally meet you." And I said, "We didn't meet in the hospital?" He says, "No, because I know that you had COVID. You tested positive for COVID. So why expose myself? I just read all your stuff and did the recommendations." So I looked at my husband. I said, "Yes, I wasn't totally out to lunch." Because anyways.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So the hospital, pardon?
You didn't miss it.
I didn't. But a lot of people did come in and out, so I had no idea. So what was I going to say? So we went to I had an EKG yesterday. They said my heart's really strong. So again, CrossFit Aptos. If any people are out there thinking they should be working out, go work out. Because I'm telling you, my heart's in a much better shape now because I was working out, or have been, and I'm back at it. So that's
I'm so happy.
Yeah, and I think Saturday is when my heart went back to beating normally because I didn't feel the need to sleep all day, and I was able to actually go to the grocery store and do stuff. So my husband has been a rock star, as you know. He filled in for me last Tuesday.
He was great.
Yeah, and you brought us some yummy soup at one point. I do remember that. And
that was when you were sick with COVID. That wasn't your heart.
That was at the start of it, yeah.
So they're saying, people, what I think we all need to realize is, yes, COVID can leave you with other issues. I know after I had it, my doctor calls me in and says, "I want to check you out. I had these spots in my eyes. They made me get a checkup to make sure I didn't have blood clots in my eyes," things like that. So by all means, we have to pay attention to our health, but we also have to realize as a society that why aren't they touting the fact that your heart was strong so you were able to recover from COVID? That's what we should be hearing about. Those are the success stories that are saving people, is the fact that they're healthy to start with.
Well, we're going to have a doctor call in at 7:30 to talk to us about this, but he said my heart went sideways because of inflammation from the COVID, just little tiny inflammation things. And the hospital's worried about me having a blood clot and a stroke, but now I'm good to go. So
that's great.
Yeah, it was quite an experience. I don't know. But I will say Dominican was wonderful. Because I know they sometimes get a bad rap. And there was something else. What now that my brain's kind of not foggy, what was the other point I was going to make about how great they were? It'll come to me.
Oh, you had said something about them not knowing if it was Omicron or not.
Oh, thank you. So while I'm in my room, she's like, we're not treating you for COVID. We're treating you for AFib. I said, oh, that's interesting. Do I have Omicron or whatever the heck it's called? And she says, she looks at me in her self-breathing head unit she's gone on, and she says, we don't test for that. I said, what do you mean you don't test for that? She says, we don't test for any of that. We don't have time for that. We don't have the setup for it. That's Fed stuff. We don't even test. I said, so in KSBW and whoever tells us that there's, 12,882 more cases today, it's all baloney? And she said, yes. She says,
Unbelievable.
I know. I'm in a major area hospital, and they have all my stuff, and they don't test for what variant it is. So everything KSBW, and I won't say everything, but a lot of what they're telling people, and people are believing, is bull.
That's really frightening, actually. That just tells you the facts aren't what they're touting as facts is not the case. So we've got to start taking some responsibility, I think, and start standing up to no. We're not doing this. And my feeling is, and I'm grateful that we now have this Omicron variant that doesn't seem to be damaging people. People are not in the hospital. They're blowing this up saying, oh, the hospital. The ICUs are still, there's only 8. ICU beds anyhow.
If that, yeah.
So they're making it sound like it's packed to the gills. Well, packed to the gills is not that full.
Right.
So,
and I think them putting me in a room and isolating me, and they have to put on the paper gown when they come in, and then they throw it away. I think it's all just for money. I mean, they're wearing these self-breathing helmet things that they don't even. All they have to do is wash their hands, but it just was really interesting. They took great care of me. I'm not nixing them for that, but all these numbers and Omicron and this and that, it's all a bunch of baloney.
It's a bunch of hooey. And so I have a good friend who works closely with Dominican, and she said that their biggest challenge right now is hiring nurses. All they're trying to do is hire nurses because I don't know how many got let go if they weren't vaccinated, but there are so many holes in the schedules that's another reason that they're not able to see patients also. So
and they say that
it's just crazy.
Nurses are working with COVID.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, that's the new thing, right?
Yeah.
If they test positive, but they don't have symptoms.
It's all such a bunch of baloney.
They just changed the rules to fit whatever they want it to happen.
So I had 2 different nurses both days because I was there Sunday night at midnight and then Monday and Tuesday, and both of them said they work 12 hours or 12 and a half hour shifts at 7 or 7:30. Their things change. And I said, oh, when do you come back to work? She said, oh, I have 7 days off. I work 3 full days and then I have 7 off. And she says, but I know that they're shorthanded, so I'll probably come in. And I'm thinking, yeah, making how much an hour? 100 and something bucks an hour, time and a half or whatever. But nowhere did I see anything shorthanded.
Right.
I mean,
so I'm sad, like in Santa Cruz County, and obviously I didn't check the numbers in Monterey. It actually has the 14-day change is super spiky. But why are we testing this if we're not that sick? Like, people are not dying with Omicron, thankfully.
Right. And the government's paying for all these tests to send out, and there's some gal I won't say where she works, but she tests every day, whether she feels good, bad, or green.
Oh, that's just stupid.
And that is so dumb.
That's to me, that doesn't seem well, they probably think they're being responsible, but to me, that doesn't seem responsible. Even Google's only doing it every week.
When I left the hospital, he says, you need to isolate for 10 days. I said, no, I don't. I started this on the 29th. I know. And I said, no, that doesn't make. But then I started to try and explain it to him, and I just said, oh, forget it. He's never going to see me again. What does he care? But it's just all a bunch of hooey out there. I'm sorry. Dominican was great. I thank them. And I'm like my new cardiologist. He's a really nice guy. So I don't know. It was quite an experience. I'm glad it's over. And I'm glad I don't have to worry about it anymore. Can I get it again? I don't know. I don't think so. I think Brett would say no. What do you think? Are you there, Kristen? Huh. Okay. Well, I'm not sure where she went. Let's talk about California taxes going up by $1,250 per household with Gavin's health care.
Okay, there we go.
Are you there? Where'd you go?
I don't know. I hit a mute button or something.
Oh.
Yeah, $12,500 per household. Right.
For Gavin's health care plan. This is to pay for all the illegals' health insurance, correct?
Yeah, it doesn't help us. Well, it's single payer, so in theory, we're going to get it as well, I guess. But I don't want state-run health care. They can't run the DMV or the unemployment checks. Like, I don't want them touching my health care.
I know. But this is where they're going to give insurance to all the illegals, correct?
Yes, it absolutely. There's 2 bills. So it's the Assembly Constitutional Amendment was introduced to the legislature to add a significant tax increase to fund universal single-payer health care. So they're saying that that's the method. And then Assembly Bill 1400, the Guaranteed Health Care for All, state-run health care bill. Like, what is this going to do? We already have 2 million illegals that come across the border. Granted, they're not all in California, but they sure as heck will be.
Yeah. Well, they think they're voting. That's another because everyone's taxes are going to go up so much. There's something, Kristen and I are both on the Santa Cruz County Republican Central Committee, and I'm trying to get a group together. And if anybody's interested, email us about with Hispanics. I don't know. I want to be careful how I say this.
Well, we want to outreach. We need to speak with the Hispanic community because their values are very much in line with Republican values.
Correct. And I was talking to our friend David, and I said, what are you registered as? And he's like, well, my wife and I are both Democrats. I said, why? As my husband's handing him cash to pay for where we keep our travel trailer. I said, David, you're a capitalist. He says, you got all these rental units on this property. And he says, I really am. I'm a conservative. I said, then why are you registered as a Democrat? He says, I don't know. When I became a citizen, which he did it all legally years ago, he works for Green Waste. And so he's got a good job. He's a supervisor. He's a great guy. I've known him for like 25, 30 years. So we want to do an outreach with Hispanics that are really conservatives and don't realize it.
I think we should. I think that anybody who went through the process or has been through the process doesn't like what's going on. If you're a legal citizen, however that happened, I don't think that this illegal, or even if you are here already, and the system is so broken. It's so broken, and we're not talking about the fentanyl that's coming across the border. And there's already another caravan I read coming from Honduras, I believe. And they're trying to make it sound like it's thousands. I think it's hundreds. Doesn't matter. They shouldn't, if they want to come here because their country is so dangerous, there's got to be a way to.
Yeah, you got to do it legally. I'm all for it
and
legally.
You should be vetted if you want to work and all those things. I don't want to pay for their health care.
No.
I don't want my children to have to pay for their health care. So here's the thing. To pay for it, your taxes will start increasing. So again, the working have to pay for the not working. Once you start making $49,000 a year,
which nowadays that isn't that much.
No. So that's what the starting point, and it graduates up from there. But if you're a business, listen to this. When your gross receipts after the first $2 million, you now owe 2.3% more in taxes.
Oh.
So even if your expenses exceed, you're not balancing your books, it doesn't matter. You're going to have to put this 2.3% to pay for the illegals to have health care.
Well, if people don't uprise against this, then it's just a lost cause. It just really freaks me out. I remember when Trump was president, people, look at how much my taxes have gone up. I'm like, you're not looking at the bottom line. No, they have not gone up. Everything,
they wanted it to believe that it would.
Yeah, that's
tax and spend.
Exactly. So, yeah, it's pretty scary. Okay, so Brett has just called in. Should we do, I guess we should probably do our commercial time first.
Yeah, let me just say, the way that you've got to contact Mark Stone as our assemblyman, and we need to really get a hold of, this cannot pass. We've got to talk to our
representatives,
our state representatives, and make sure that our voices are heard, because I promise you the other side that wants it is definitely calling. So he'll never vote against it, but at least we have our voices that we can say, we asked, we told you not to, you big
dummies. Yeah, it's, people, I just don't understand how the direction that the Democrats have us headed in, how people think this is a good thing.
Right.
It's not. All right, so we ready for our break?
Take a break.
And then we'll be back in a minute with Brett, our doctor.
Let's play a game. We'll call it True or False.
Everyone's getting along and listening to each other. True or false?
The streets are now safe enough for children to walk to school unattended. True or false?
Personal incomes are way up and taxes are way down. True or false?
Race relations have improved and everyone is now judged by the quality of their character. True or false?
Politicians now say, do as I do, not as I say. True or false?
If you answered false to any of these questions, it's time for a big change.
Start making that change by joining your county's Republican Party.
And bring true back into politics.
It's easy enough to do. Go to SantaCruzRepublicans.com or your local county website and help us put some true back into politics.
Whether you are buying a home, selling a home, or adding to your real estate investment portfolio, I can help. I'm Patty Erickson with Keller Williams Realty Santa Cruz and your local real estate expert. The Santa Cruz County real estate market is hot, and it's a great time to buy and sell. Call me at 831-234-2329 and let me help you with your real estate needs. Again, my number is 831-234-2329. Or find me on the web at Patty Erickson Real Estate.
Okay, we are back. I'm going to turn Brett on.
All right, welcome back to the Elephant in the Room with Chris and Kristen.
So, Bret Barker, are you there?
So, you all should know that he's getting around, and I'm so happy we'll let him introduce himself. But he has become a very big talker, big influencer, and saving a lot of people with COVID. Brett, are you there?
Hang on, Nick's trying to figure this out for me.
All right. So
Are you there, Brett?
I'm here. Good evening.
Good.
There he is. Hi, Brett.
How are you?
Hello, ladies. How are you? I'm great. Glad you're both feeling better. Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you, especially you, Pimp Daddy, for the invite.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to have my son change my stupid phone name of me. That's funny. So,
my nickname.
That's a good one.
So I know. So tell us about you.
I know, Brett.
About me. I got to get to the short of it. So, healthcare is my fourth career. Did aerospace, military, aftermarket Harley business. Got into healthcare after 9/11. Wanted something that I can put some brain cells to use for. Went to nursing school along the way. Worked full time in ICU. Went on and got 5 degrees in total over that time, all working full time. I taught at Gavilan for 10 years. Left there as assistant director. Taught at Cal State Monterey for a little bit. Edited some textbooks and things. So I went and got my doctor of nursing practice and family nurse practitioner. And, want to do some private stuff and Botox and fillers, make pretty girls prettier and do some general practice. And then COVID hit. So I went back to the bedside in ICU. Went to 8 different facilities in February 2020 to February 21, 6 in California, 1 in New Orleans, 1 in Brooklyn. And so I was really front line with COVID, 3 to 5 days a week, 12 hours a day or night, mostly nights. And so I saw the stuff that was going on, started figuring out the disease process, talking to a lot of people, started utilizing Dr. Vlad Zelenko's protocols, and started listening to Dr. Peter McCullough and his tutelage, how he explained the disease process, and everything he said made sense. So I left Brooklyn in February last year and published the first edition of my book with the primary intent of keeping people out of the hospital and treating them at home as best we possibly could. And so far I've been quite successful with that, guiding people through the COVID treatment protocols that seem to work. Of course, people call it medical misinformation, but I think I know 2 people that can say that's contrary to what they say.
Yeah, he helped us both, and my son and his family.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
And I have another friend who you ended up helping unbeknownst to either one of us. So she actually did spend a little time in the hospital, but she knew it was because that it wasn't worse because you had put her on whatever. So we've learned a lot in the last 2 years, right?
Yes, we've learned quite a bit. Early aggressive treatment. And the big thing, before I talk about some of the tidbits, I heard a couple of your comments earlier on, like why the inflammation caused your AFib along with clotting, Chris, and I refuse to use the term variant. We could talk about that. And the testing is something I'd like to touch on too. But really the big thing is people don't understand it's a 2-phase illness, and the viral illness is a 10,000-year-long coronavirus we've had around forever. It's been modified, yes, but most people get through that viral phase in 3 to 7 days. It's that inflammation and clotting that starts on day 1 that catches up to them about 10 to 14 days in and affects the respiratory system if they don't get that under control. So that's what was putting people on ventilators, and especially in 2020 with the civil unrest and shutdowns, people were staying at home longer, getting sicker before they got into the hospital in the first place, and they didn't know what the heck we were dealing with. So it was really a train wreck in 2020 because of all those factors.
So what do you think affected my AFib?
Well, it was a combination of heart inflammation from spike protein, caused some endocarditis and myocarditis, plus those little microemboli we talked about. When you activate the clotting cascade, you get these little microemboli, which are platelets and fibrin and red blood cells stuck together because they're looking to make a scab for a hole that doesn't exist, so they're floating around in bloodstream. When they can cause intermittent traffic jams. They're not heart attack-sized clots or stroke-sized clots, but they're enough to, if the blood flow's not enough, they can intermittently jam, and they're not carrying oxygen anyway because they're now concrete. So when you don't get oxygen to the tissue, it screams to your brain as pain. And then, of course, your heart's going to fight to send electrical signal to where it's supposed to go. So it's going to find another pathway.
Right.
And so you get an erratic heart rate, or what they call irritable foci. I had AFib and flutter. I had an ablation in 2018. Had it for about a year and a half. It sucked. The flutter was the worst. It was like Telltale Heartbeat of Girl and Poe, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, bump, 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 every third beat. Anyway.
Yeah, I realized I didn't want to die from a heart attack because I think it would be very, very painful.
Yeah, no fun.
No.
Yeah.
Interesting. And what else were you going to say about the variant?
Oh, you guys are talking about Omicron, and I just kind of laughed because everybody was calling it that, and I listened to what you said. It's like, of course they can't test for it, and who even knows if that's really what it is? I mean, if you go down to Antarctica, there's, Omicron Island and Delta Island. It's in the same region as Rothschild Island, so they can call it whatever they want. I'm not alluding to anything, but, all I know is Africa got shut down when they found what they called Omicron over there that didn't really kill anybody. And then all of a sudden it appeared in the United States. It's like kangaroos evolving in Australia, North America, India, and Europe all at the same time, exactly the same. And that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting when I asked, so is that what I have? And she just looked at me and says, we don't even test for it. But
no, yeah, you got one of them. They're constantly mutating. The flu virus mutates, travels around the world, constantly mutating every year. We've known it for years. That's why we modify the flu vaccine every single year, which, by the way, they've never touched this one. It came out in December 2020. They haven't even revisited it. So, but they want you to get a booster. That's like taking in Tylenol today for a headache you had last year.
Right. Do you ever get the flu shots?
I used to. This is the first year I haven't.
I never have.
Yeah, I've been boosting myself with, my DCs and zincs, exercise, and
right.
I haven't been sick in a couple of years. The last time I was sick was 2019 to 20 when I had colon cancer and did chemo and radiation. Then a month after that, I got on the road to take care of COVID patients because I guess I had a death wish, but I didn't get it.
Interesting. All right. So what else? What do you tell people that they should do if they start feeling sick?
Well, it's early aggressive treatment, and the very, very first symptoms is an indication of spike protein, and we can talk about testing, okay? When spike protein hits the ACE2 receptor in your lung, it basically sends a signal, now this is kind of a gross statement, that you got your leg cut off, okay? It doesn't drop your blood pressure or anything, it sends a signal to start inflammation and clotting, like cracking an egg on a frying pan and turning it on low back on day one. That clotting starts making these little microemboli, okay? So, like I said, they can include tissues, and that reduces oxygen, which tells the brain pain, okay? So people get a headache, and often it's a roaming headache. It might move around the front of your head, the side of your head. It might cause pain behind the eye. As it goes on, you may have some lower back pain because you have tons of capillaries in your kidneys, those little filters get occluded. They don't get enough blood. They're not happy. So that's one side, so the headache. The other one is that occasional dry, non-productive cough, like I just did. And the reason for that is spike protein hits the same receptor site that we made an antihypertensive medication for years ago. It's called an ACE inhibitor. And the number one side effect and complaint of that is that cough. People even put it on their chart as an allergy. So those two together usually tell me it's spike before you take a test. Because a lot of these tests, they're like, 3 days before travel, whatever. By the time you get enough virus in your nostrils, it doesn't happen on day one. You're not instantly going to test positive as soon as you're exposed. So if you don't test for like 5 or 9 days, it's probably the window you're going to test positive. So people are running around day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, transmitting this stuff because they don't know. But they have symptoms. I mean, that's like driving around your car with a low tire, not putting air in it, wait for it to go flat, waiting for a confirmation of a test.
Good comparison. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I was really dizzy. What caused my dizziness?
Oh, the dizziness could come from oxygen deprivation, and you might have had a little low blood pressure on top of it because inflammation opens up your blood vessels. It go from it's like you ever got a swollen red cut when you're at any time of your life. Your tissues open up to let fluid in, so it can send in the repair parts, white blood cells, and things like that. So with body-wide inflammation, you start having this fluid leak throughout, and you can probably lose your blood pressure a little bit. That can cause some dizziness along with lower oxygen levels.
Yeah, interesting.
So what can we do? Obviously, there's a lot of talk about inflammation or trying to be on anti-inflammatory diets, or what can we do to make ourselves stronger so that if we did get in contact with the virus, we can fight it, quickly and safely.
Sure. Well, definitely want to take your vitamin D, C, and zinc. It creates what's called a zinc ionophore, which protects the narrow channel to the cell. It's kind of like two magnets of the same polarity pressing against each other to keep the virus out. That's one part. The other part is your diet. So a low sugar diet is good, but everybody basically on a keto diet that I guide through COVID, because it has twice as many calories as protein or carbohydrates. It's easy to burn as fuel. Fat doesn't make you fat. Eat more than you burn makes you fat. But sugar itself, when it breaks down in this what we call the Krebs cycle, to get energy out of it, has a lot of inflammatory molecules, acetone and lots of other little nasty stuff that worsens inflammation. The thing, though, is most people don't realize it so you're talking preventative, that works great. But if you did get exposed and you start feeling that, usually over-the-counter NSAIDs can work really well, ibuprofen, Aleve, and others. There's colchicine. There's a bunch of different prescription medications that can be used. But a lot of times it's a short-term low-dose steroid. And then Dr. Chetty in Africa has used Singular, which is an asthma medication, which helps open up the windpipe and large airways. Works really, really well. I suggest a lot of people take that. It's like keeping your slow running sink open.
So I just read a study, though, that there's been reports of mental health issues on Singular. So I guess you just have to watch it.
That's a standard side effect that's been listed for Singular forever. It's right up there with mixing azithromycin with hydroxychloroquine, and there's a potential for a QT prolongation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are little black box warning. If you've ever seen a drug commercial, they tell you basically you're going to die, your head's going to explode, and you're going to spontaneously combust if you take this stuff, but you're going to feel better.
But buy it. We want you to buy it.
Right. So it's risk versus benefit. Yeah, there's side effects for everything. Well, is it in the 1% or is it in the 99%? So, yeah, some people get a little bit of, heightened whatever mood, angry, happy, whatever. It might alter, vivid dreams. They cause different things. Hundreds of people I've had on this, maybe a couple have complained about it. But again, it's short-term therapy. Okay. You're probably talking 7 to 14 days. The same like with the steroid. It's typically a 6-day therapy. It causes insomnia. It elevates your blood pressure. It elevates your heart rate. I let everybody know this so they can have their Benadryl, valerian, chamomile tea on hand, or glass of wine, whatever their deal is, so they can combat that. But there's side effects, and they're expected side effects. You just have to be wary of them. And if people start getting a little goofy, then they need to try something else. But most people do just fine. Just like
I guess for 2 weeks, right?
Right. People reverse the steroids period because they hear about the thin skin, the moon face, all this stuff. Well, you're not taking it for 5 years. You're taking it for less than a week.
Yeah, you certainly helped my son. You helped my son. You helped Kristen. You helped me. You helped, and all the other people.
My whole family. No, there's been a lot of the benefit that you have added. It was like finally we could follow what our guts were telling us
from the start of this craziness.
From the beginning. So I'm very, very grateful to have come across you, and the fact that your fiance is somebody I've adored my whole life is even better. But she's friends with my little brother, one of my brothers. So thank you. So do you want to, if anybody needs Bret, by all means, email us and we'll give you,
I met you in Carmel, and I said to my husband afterwards, I said, he's like Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park. That's exactly what you look like, the leather jacket, the whole deal. I was just like, wow, that was really cool. This is one smart guy.
I think that's cool. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, you've been told that before.
Yes, I have. I'm just glad that God saved my life to let me save others. So.
Yeah, I didn't know about the colon cancer and all that. I did not know. It's interesting where our paths go, for sure. So thank you. Are you still treating a ton of people every day?
I know. What's it look like right now?
I talk to lots of people throughout the day, across the country, guiding people through this and encouraging them, telling them where to go, what to get, how to get it, what they should get. sending tons of emails and things. So yes, what am I seeing? I'm seeing that Omicron, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, how many you got? You know, the East Coast is a little more severe. Southern California is a little more severe. So those are obviously different. Northern California is a little bit lighter. Arizona's got nothing. Colorado is probably moderate, as well as like West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. The Great Lakes have kind of diminished. But it kind of waxes and wanes. I think it's a little colder right now, so not seeing as much, but there's some people shut in, can't get meds and stuff, so they're having to use what's in the cupboard. So just kind of guide them through, you know, what they can do with what they have at home. And some people are getting through it. So it's, most places it's not as severe as the outcome. It's not hitting as hard, so it's kind of mutating itself into weakness, which is good.
Right.
So
that's biology 101, right? Like that's what viruses do.
That's biology 101. Yeah, that's what they do. And so then they'll hit us with something else later, maybe that stash of smallpox they got.
So let me ask you
or whatever, like they did to my ancestors.
What's that?
The smallpox.
Like they did to my ancestors. I'm Native and Scottish, so I got European and Native American blood. So.
Good combo. Probably strong genes, though. So my daughter's roommate, 21 years old, had 2 Pfizer shots and 2 booster shots because she has an autoimmune situation, and her doctor suggested she needed another booster shot to go back to school. Well, guess who tested positive for COVID 2 days ago?
Oh.
Yeah. Well, one, she should have never got any of them because of autoimmune. They're giving this to everybody like candy. It's like walking around to everybody with an ounce of cocaine. Say, everybody take some cocaine. We don't know who's going to live or die. I've had a colonel last year. We were talking about trying to get him an exemption. His hematologist wouldn't do it. His cardiologist wouldn't do it. And so he succumbed and he took the jab. And within an hour, he's in the ER with a pulmonary embolism and died. 30-year career gone and him off the planet. And right now, 80% of the people I talk to, 80%, and probably, you know, I talk to probably 10, 15 people a day. 80% of the people I talk to have been vaccinated and have COVID. I have about a handful of pregnant women over the last few months that got the jab prior to pregnancy, and they've already had complications and got COVID.
I know of a few people, of 2 women of that happening too, and a couple of them losing the babies. When are we going to see the numbers of pregnancies lost because of this stupid thing?
Well, like you look on social media, they'll say the World Health Organization monitors for safety and effectiveness. They do. They don't do anything about it, but they do monitor. There's a site called vigiaccess.org, VIGI access.org. They'll tell you what keyword phrase to type in right on the front page when you go in, COVID-19 vaccine. And I think yesterday it was almost 3 million adverse reactions that have been reported, so it's likely higher. And it's very easy to navigate, better than the CDC's VAERS system. It goes by body systems, and it'll tell you all the different things that happen that are reported directly related to this. And if it was anything else, it would have been pulled from the market around the globe already. So that's what I know about that. And you talked about the autoimmune thing. Consider this. And even Dr. Robert Malone, he'll tell you he wanted to use this for gene therapy, not for this. You take a program, mRNA or DNA, and you tell your body to make spike protein, which is a toxin. So then your body makes spike protein, which is a toxin, and then that makes your body make antibodies against the spike protein your body just made. That is a textbook definition of autoimmune disease right there.
Interesting.
Wow, it is, isn't it?
So, you know how they were every other commercial word on TV, radio, whatever, get your vaccine, and now you're not hearing it as much, which is what I've noticed. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, still hearing it a lot, but the problem I have, there's a couple. One, it's violating our 14th Amendment. 2, there's people that want it, if it was perfect. Okay, they went back to drawing board, made everything perfect. There's probably people that want it that still shouldn't get it. You can't just blanket this on everybody. It's just, I don't know anything on the planet where you can just cookie cutter, one size fits all, anything at all. It just baffles me. Well, it doesn't baffle me. I just see through the BS.
Well, then they say 40% of death mortality or prime age mortality is up 40%, not from COVID necessarily. And the only thing that's changed are these shots. So I don't think we've even scratched the surface of what we're going to see.
Yeah, I started. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I started seeing this starting last year. I anticipated what was coming. I have not seen any kids under 18 with COVID or COVID symptoms prior to 3 months ago. What started happening when they started getting vaccines to all the school kids. We didn't really see a spike in cancer. I had one gal I talked to about 4 or 5 days ago. She got COVID, double vaccinated, early on, December 2020. April of last year, I believe, she had to go in and have a benign tumor removed from her inner ear. Never had a history of cancer or anything, because we know this does depress your natural killer cells, which are those guys that cruise around your body getting rid of cancers. Our body's always fighting cancer. So you depress that stuff, and things are going to creep up, especially if you have genetics that are more propensity to that, or if you have a history of cancer like myself. I do not want to have it come out of remission. I really don't. It was not fun.
No, my husband's the same way. And
wow.
It just doesn't.
It's not worth the risk. Yeah, especially when you can treat it in 3 to 5 days, which is medical misinformation. Nobody can tell you that. It's repurposed drugs. It's an off-the-shelf steroid, an off-the-shelf antiviral. It's an off-the-shelf Singular. It's pick a doxycycline, azithromycin. If you're allergic, there's other stuff that can be used. It's treating what happens from spike protein hitting you and getting the viral load down. You want to? Can I talk about hospital stuff? You guys talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, talk.
So, what I've seen, with over 300 patients in ICU and zipping up probably over 30 body bags, more than I ever want to see in my life. People come in, like I said, 3 to 7 days viral illness, maybe 2 weeks, you might push it. Okay, at that point, you got bacteria taking over, the inflammation and clotting really got hold of it. The likelihood that they need an antiviral at 2 weeks of illness when the pulmonary phase is pretty slim, and then their kidneys are already taxed from inflammation. Getting rid of the CO2 that they can't get through their lungs has to go through the kidneys. Is basically liquid baking soda, pee it out. And then they hit them with this fancy, expensive drug that's an antiviral that taxes the kidneys, that's probably not doing any good and makes it worse and could cause flash pulmonary edema and different things, which makes their breathing worse instead of dealing with the inflammation and clotting. There's budesonide nebulizers, which patients I encourage all across the place, when their sats start dropping 97, 96, and they're hitting that pulmonary phase, they start those right away, they turn around. I've had a few hospitals and places I was at, and doctors who would actually talk to me since then, try the budesonide and albuterol nebs 4 times a day. They got people off ventilators when they did that. When they would give them a thrombolytic, right? They have TPA in the hospital. It's called alteplase. They use it to declot catheters, break up clots for strokes, heart attacks, pulmonary embolisms, deep vein thrombosis, all the time. The stuff's in the pharmacy, every hospital. They won't use it. Okay? They give them blood thinners to keep new clots from forming. In the meantime, they're paralyzed, they're sedated, they're on a ventilator while their blood is turning to sludge. You need to break down what's already there. And they won't get rid of this stuff.
This is what motivates these doctors.
I don't know if they don't know or they won't listen.
Yeah.
So
I really don't have
my
an answer.
mailman.
For me, it's basic.
My mailman got COVID in June of 20 when it was still real new, and he's not real savvy to what's going on. And we happened to talk about it, and I said, Diego, if anything ever happens, do not let them put a ventilator down your throat. So he, of course, got it, and he was gone, and I didn't know. Anyways, he said, Chris, you saved my life by me telling them don't put a ventilator down. They gave him plasma, and he was back to work within a week.
Oh, my gosh.
But he came in the other day, and he says, you saved my life. I mean, I just knew don't get a ventilator. Don't let them do that. But why don't they use plasma on everybody?
Well, there's a couple reasons. Yeah, the first thing is, okay, the ventilators work when they need to, but they need to do these things with the ventilator that they're not. Okay, and when you start paralyzing people and sludging their blood and not dealing with the inflammation, doing these other key components, the ventilator is just like a stopgap, keeping them alive till they die, a warm body. So they need to actually fix the problem. So ventilators themselves aren't bad. It's what they do with it, because you get jelly lung, that hyaluronic acid that's going to make a scar underneath the scab for the hole that doesn't exist. is going to make a scar. So it deposits in the fluid-filled space between the air sacs in your lungs and your capillaries. So then you need high pressures and 100% oxygen to try to force the oxygen gas through that gunk. But you got to break it down. So you need those steroids in the blood and in the lungs. Double. And the clotting, the blood's not carrying enough oxygen. You got to not only stop making new clots, but you got to break down what's there. Basic stuff. Why aren't they using plasma? They started using convalescent plasma early on. It worked really great. Unfortunately, people were slamming it in like I did in trauma for years. We're trying to raise blood volume quickly to save a life. It's okay when you're doing that, but when you're giving something that's got antibodies in it, like convalescent plasma, you have to run it slow. Real, 75 up to 100 milliliters an hour,
Interesting.
Right?
Well,
Below a quarter cup an hour. Otherwise, there's a lot of problems that can happen. Monoclonals can actually spike fevers and do that stuff if it's run too fast. But monoclonals do work, and so does plasma. And maybe, I don't know if it was a setup by the plasma didn't work, but even the Red Cross is not doing anything with it anymore because people stopped using it because there was bad experience because they didn't know how to give it properly from the trial and error and want to go try it again at a slower rate. I mean, we know this with blood transfusions for years, 15 minutes. We run it slow and see how it goes, check their temperature, check their vitals, stay in the room. They weren't doing that. They weren't using basic blood transfusion 101 because it was plasma, not blood. Okay, they just treated it like you just slam it in like you would with somebody who's bleeding out.
Well, they took care of him, and he's fine. I have an important question. Once you've had COVID, can you get it a second time?
I'm sure you can. Like I said, the coronavirus has caused a common cold for over 10,000 years. It's always changing. It's just going to be something different. It might be milder, it might be worse. It could be something completely different that has not yet disappeared from the environment. Coronavirus isn't the only thing out there. So there's still rhinovirus, adenovirus, all these other things. Can it get COVID? I've had patients who's had COVID before. People that have been vaccinated. Look at Kat Timpf on Fox News. She's on the Gutfeld show. She's double vaccinated and got COVID twice.
Really?
So, yeah.
It just depends on which version, I guess, what antibodies you have remaining is what it kind of seems
right.
like, right?
It's built in. Right. And I did put a whole bunch of antibody results in my book, and thank you for sharing yours with me, Kristen. They go up when it's length of illness and severity of illness, and then of course your body's not going to keep what it doesn't need, so they're eventually going to wane. But there's some pretty high numbers. I mean, the average I got on most people from last year was around 500-ish. Some up as high as 2,500, which is the max scale. People with monoclonals would be down to like 8 or 9 because they didn't need to make their own. So your body has an immune system that's going to fight off what foreign invader comes in, and when it runs out of ammo, it's going to call in the cavalry, and that's making antibodies. So people that get through the illness quick, 3 to 5 days, they're not going to have a big antibody response. So could they get it good? Yeah, because they didn't need it. But you do have T-cell memory, and that's got the blueprint to make antibodies, so it only needs to do some fine-tuning, so it'll probably respond pretty quickly. You may not get as sick. That's usually what happens.
How long should I wait to test my antibodies again?
Typically, it should be at least 2 weeks after your last illness with COVID.
Okay, I'll wait a month. Okay. Yeah. Brett, we thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you both for having me on.
Thank you. You are a lifesaver. If you want his information, knk@ksco.com. You're the best.
Yay.
You guys rock.
We do our best. So see you all next week. And thanks for joining us.
News this hour from townhall.com.